In the world of construction and heavy industry, every day is a new challenge. We work hard, we push our limits, and we take pride in what we build. But sometimes, in the rush to get the job done, we forget the most important rule of all: safety first, always. This is a story about what can happen when that rule is broken. It's a tough story to tell, but it's one we all need to hear. It was a typical Tuesday on a busy construction site. The sun was high, and the air was filled with the sounds of progress. Up on a 4-meter-high platform, a team of welders was hard at work, joining sections of a large pipe. Among them was a man we'll call Brian. Brian was known for his dedication. He was a skilled welder, a hard worker, and he was always looking to go the extra mile, especially when it meant a little extra in his paycheck. As noon approached, the lunch bell rang. The site supervisor came by and gave the team the all-clear for their break. One by one, Brian's colleagues started packing up, ready to head to the canteen. But Brian had other plans. He was close to finishing a major section, and he knew that if he could just push through lunch, he'd exceed the day's milestone. The client was offering a bonus for speed, and Brian wanted it for himself and his team members. "You guys go ahead," he told his friends. "I'll just finish this one piece and catch up with you later." His supervisor, seeing his enthusiasm and wanting to keep the project on schedule, gave him a nod of approval. "All right, Brian. Just be careful up there." His colleagues waved and left, their laughter and chatter fading as they walked away. Soon, the only sound on that part of the site was the hiss and crackle of Brian's welding torch. He was alone, focused, and determined. He was doing what he did best. The idea of the extra pay motivated him, pushing him to work faster, to stretch a little further. In his haste, while repositioning himself to get a better angle on the weld, his foot slipped. It happened in a split second. Brian lost his balance and fell from the platform. It was a 4-meter drop. But the fall itself wasn't the worst part. As he came down, his head struck the sharp and forgiving edge of a metal container on the ground below. The impact was severe. He lay there, motionless, bleeding heavily from a deep wound on his head. But there was no one around. The site was quiet, deserted for the lunch hour. No one heard his fall. No one was there to call for help. There was no time to react, no one to shout to, nothing to grab onto. He felt the loneliness. No one was there to apply pressure to the wound or rush him to the on-site clinic. He was completely alone, his life slipping away with every drop of blood that soaked into the dusty ground. An hour passed. The lunch break ended, and his colleagues started making their way back to the worksite, rested and ready for the afternoon. As they approached the platform, one of them noticed something on the ground. A figure, lying still. They ran over, and their hearts sank. It was Brian. He was surrounded by a pool of blood, and he wasn't moving. Panic set in. They shouted his name, but there was no response. They immediately called for the medics, their voices trembling. The site's emergency response team arrived within minutes, but it was too late. By the time they got to him, Brian had lost a catastrophic amount of blood. He was already gone. The medics did what they could, but there was no life to save. An ambulance arrived, its sirens a mournful cry across the now silent construction site. But it wasn't rushing to a hospital, it was taking Brian's body to the morgue. His colleagues watched in stunned silence, a mix of shock, grief, and disbelief on their faces. The friend they had been joking with just an hour ago was gone. In the days that followed, a full investigation was launched by the workplace safety regulators. They interviewed everyone from the supervisor to Brian's teammates. They examined the site, the platform, the equipment. They wanted to understand how such a tragedy could have happened. What went wrong? The final report was clear and conclusive. The primary root cause was not the fall itself, or the lack of a helmet, which he was not wearing. The root cause was that Brian was a lone worker. He was performing a high-risk task, at a height, with no one else present to provide assistance or summon help in an emergency. The system had failed him. The decision to allow him to work alone during the lunch break, driven by a desire to meet a deadline and earn a bonus, had cost him his life. A few weeks later, the entire site was gathered for a mandatory safety awareness session. The mood was somber. On the screen at the front of the room was a picture of Brian, smiling with his family. The presenter, a safety engineer, began to speak, his voice heavy. "Today, we're not just talking about rules and procedures," he said. "We're talking about why those rules exist. We're talking about our friend, Brian." He walked the team through the investigation's findings. He explained the concept of lone working and its inherent dangers. He stressed that no deadline, no bonus, no milestone is ever worth more than a human life. The pressure to work faster is real, but our responsibility to each other is greater. The key lessons were laid out for everyone to see. First, high-risk activities like working at height must never be performed alone. A buddy system or a dedicated spotter is not a suggestion, it is a requirement. Someone must always be there, watching, ready to respond. Second, supervisors have a critical responsibility. They are the gatekeepers of safety. They must have the courage and authority to say no, even when a worker is eager to press on. The pressure from clients or management can never override the duty to protect their team. Permitting lone work in a situation like this was a critical failure in that duty. Third, we must cultivate a culture where everyone feels empowered to speak up. If Brian's colleagues had felt that saying, "Hey, maybe you should wait for us," was the right thing to do, things might have been different. We are our brother's keeper on a work site. We look out for each other. The session ended with a powerful message. The greatest tribute we can pay to Brian is to make sure this never, ever happens again. We must learn from this tragedy and change our behavior. We must make safety our first thought, not an afterthought. This story is a heartbreaking reminder of the real-world consequences of cutting corners. Brian wasn't reckless, he was dedicated, but dedication without safety is a gamble you can't afford to take. Let's honor his memory by recommitting ourselves to a culture of safety, communication, and care. Look out for your teammates. Follow the procedures. And never, ever work alone when the risk is high. Your family is waiting for you to come home. Let's make sure we all do. Stay safe out there, and don't forget to subscribe and follow Elijah on YouTube for more content on workplace safety and awareness.